Welcome to Ski Stories. In today's episode, Stenmark, Rules and Asterisks. Stenmark won lots over his career. He was the most dominant force skiing had seen since Kelly's much too early retirement in 1968. In fact, he was so good that he received special treatment. Not any kind of treatment you would want, mind you, but it was special. It's time to dive into what Stenmark didn't win, but should have, and what he did win, but that doesn't count. Let's get into it with this question. Which of these 5 skiers do you think won the overall cup? I've put the results in order of position in each race rather than chronological order. The answer is coming up later in this video. Now there are 2 things you need to know for what's coming up in the video. Number 1, if you finish a World Cup race in a good enough position, you score World Cup points. Number 2, at the end of the season, those World Cup points are added together and whoever has the most points wins the overall cup. And whoever has the most points in a discipline, like slalom or downhill, wins that discipline cup. That seems reasonable and simple enough. It's not though. Why? Well, first, the number of points scored per race has changed over the years. As you can see, there have been 3 main eras, a top 10 system, a top 15 system, and the current top 30 system. That's not so weird, but when you compare skiers from different eras, you need to take this into account. In all systems, 4th place has been deemed worth roughly half the World Cup points that a win is worth. Now I use today's system when comparing races from different eras, because today's system is fair and we're much more familiar with it. Second, in the current system, all points scored over the season are added together and whoever has the most points wins. That seems reasonable enough, but if you remember anything from your history class, you know that the past was weird, and that's certainly true for World Cup skiing. You see, in the early days, the season was divided into 2 or 3 periods, and only a limited number of results from each period could be counted towards the overall cup. Then those periods were removed, but you could still only count a limited number of races per discipline toward the overall cup. So, for example, in 1978, only your best 3 results per discipline counted toward the overall cup. But for some reason, the top 5 counted toward the slalom and GS cups. Less like the overall cup and more like the distilled cup. If you think about it, those types of rules could generate some really odd outcomes. It could mean that the skier who had the best results might not win the overall cup. I'm gonna put something out immediately. If Stenmark had skied under today's points and scoring system, he would have won 6 overall cups. In addition to 76, 77 and 78, when he did win the overall cup, he would have taken the overall also in 1979, 1980 and 81. But he didn't. I want to stress that there's no speculation going on here, just very simple math. Let's understand why and how. Stenmark was bad for business and he was bad for the motivation of his competitors. His domination was total. The rules for the overall cup were changed for the 78 season and the division of the season into 2 or 3 periods was removed. Instead, it was decided that only the best 3 results in each discipline could count towards the overall cup. So, what did Stenmark do? Well, he promptly won the first 3 GS races and the first 3 slaloms of the season. It meant that he had wrapped up the overall cup by January 9th. Only 9 of the total 22 races of the season had been held by that point. The first attempt to dethrone Stenmark had failed. So in 1978, you could ski as many races as you wanted. You could even win all of the races, but only the best 3 results per discipline would count towards the overall cup. It all meant that the best skiers would get points deducted in the calculation for the overall cup. Stenmark scored a total of 273 points in the old top 10 system, but only 150 points counted toward the overall cup. In today's system, he would have scored 1,105 points in a short 1978 season with only 22 races on the entire World Cup calendar. However, in the calculation of points for the overall cup, he would only have scored 600 and lost out on the remaining 505 points. From my perspective, this is all very strange. The very idea that the overall cup doesn't include the overall results from the season just seems unreasonable. The only somewhat reasonable explanation is that they wanted to prevent too much specialization. The ideal skier who should win the overall cup was a Kili type skier who skied downhill as well as slalom and GS. Now in '78 that didn't matter in the end and Stenmark won the overall cup anyway. But the situation was now deemed untenable. Now you don't have to take my word for it, just listen to this guy.
It's no use to make competition for a whole season and it's already over after 1 month. You know, it's no use to do it.
Men jag tycker det är fel att de ska ändra reglerna efter mig till exempel. Det kan de ju inte göra.
From an economic point of view, you would like to see the formula changed.
Yeah, for sure.
So what happened in the 1979 season is pretty astonishing. Stenmark's detractors basically broke math to catch him. For the '79 season, the books were cooked to make sure Stenmark didn't win. The season started with the normal top 10 system that had been in place since 1967, so the top 10 finishers scored points. The rule about 3 races per discipline counting toward the overall cup remained in force. However, it was also decided that just for the last 2 downhills, last 3 slaloms, and last 3 GS races, points would be handed out to the top 25 skiers instead of only the top 10. But more than that, there would only be a 1-point difference between positions. As I mentioned before, in all other seasons in World Cup skiing, a 4th place has scored roughly half the number of points that the winner scores. But in 1979, all of a sudden, placing 11th in the last races scored as many points as finishing 3rd normally did, and finishing 6th scored as many points as finishing 2nd. Very heavy-handed. Stenmark did his usual thing and won a lot. He won 3 slaloms and all 10 GS races, which meant that he had maxed out his points. 150 points in the old system, the equivalent of 600 today. He had 7 wins that didn't count towards the overall cup. For reference, Hirscher won the overall cup in 2013, 2014 and 2017 with 7 or fewer wins. The Stenmark rules of 1978 would actually have been enough to block Stenmark in '79, but I guess they weren't taking any chances by then. The Stenmark rules of 1980 and 81 through 87, although less heavy-handed, would also have been enough to block Stenmark in '79, but they weren't taking any chances. So, think what you want of them, but the Stenmark rules definitely serve their purpose. Again, there's no speculating going on about the numbers here, the numbers don't lie. Side note, from 1988, all results have counted toward the overall cup like they do today. Stenmark's '79 season was actually so good that under the current system he would have won the overall cup every year since the World Cup started, except in 1998, 2000, 2002 and 2016, and that's based on the number of points the racers actually scored. But in each of those higher scoring seasons, Meyer, Eberharter and Hirscher benefited from lots of points in the Super G, no less than 249. And remember, the Super G didn't even exist in '79. So if you remove the points they scored in Super G, Stenmark would have won those seasons as well. And Stenmark actually had a 14th win in '79, a parallel slalom that didn't count for him individually. The outcome of the Stenmark rules was remarkable, incredible really. How else do you explain these overall cup standings? Now let's take that in. I don't begrudge Peter Lüscher his accomplishment of winning the overall cup. Well done, congratulations. But under the current rules, he was almost 600 points behind Stenmark. For reference, scoring 600 points in the overall cup in total more often than not gets you into the top 10 in the overall cup standings. So Stenmark had clearly dominated Lüscher on the hill, and yet Lüscher won the overall cup. Here's the Wikipedia description of the overall cup for the '79 season. In men's overall World Cup 78-79, the best 3 results of each discipline count. Best 3 downhills, best 3 giant slaloms, best 3 slaloms, and best 3 combined. 37 racers had a point deduction. Ingemar Stenmark had 260 points deduction and won 13 races. The New York Times said this on February 5th, 1979, roughly halfway through the season. Ingemar Stenmark, who's already lost his World Cup title, won his 6th consecutive Cup Giant Slalom by a record margin of 4.06 seconds today. But even though it was the Swede's 7th overall victory of the season, it earned him no points, only the knowledge that he remains the best slalom skier in the world. The outlandish Stenmark rules of 1979 were only in place for one season. In 1980, the rules were tweaked so that the best 4 races in each discipline would count, and the top 15 racers would score World Cup points. It was enough to prevent Stenmark from taking the overall cup. Remember that in 1980 a win scored 25 World Cup points. The rules meant that Stenmark had 128 points deducted from his score after winning 11 races. Andreas Wenzel, who won the overall cup, only had 8 points deducted. Under the Stenmark rules, Wenzel scored 204 points and Stenmark 200. If the Stenmark rules had not applied, the scoreline would have been 328 for Stenmark against 212 for Wenzel, or 1,300 in today's points for Stenmark against 868 for Wenzel. But Wenzel took the overall cup. In 1981, the rules were tweaked again. The top 15 system was kept in place, but now the best 5 races per discipline would count toward the overall cup. It still blocked Stenmark from a fair win. He won 10 races, 4 slaloms and 6 GS races, and scored his first points in a combined by finishing 3rd in Oberstaufen. Under the applicable rules, Stenmark scored 416 points, which today would have equaled 1,665 points, one of the best seasons of all time. Phil Mayer, who won the overall cup in 1981, scored 358 points, or the equivalent of 1,478 in today's points, which is typically good enough for the overall cup, but it needed help from the Stenmark rules to take the cup that year. Under the rules of 1981, Stenmark had 156 points deducted to finish at 260, whereas Phil Mayer, who had a mere 92 points deducted, finished at 266. I hope you get this point by now. Stenmark was the best, he had the best results, but the rules prevented him from counting all his results and he couldn't win the overall cup. 3 of the best seasons of all time. 3 seasons with at least 10 wins. The only 3 seasons of all time when a racer has won 10 or more races and not won the overall cup. By now, you know that Stenmark won loads of races. If you're into ski racing, maybe you already knew that he won 86 World Cup races. But he won 89. You see, during most of Stenmark's career, parallel slalom races were held once per season. His first parallel slalom, in 1975, counted as an individual race and he finished 2nd to Gustav Töni. Thereafter, the parallel slalom races only counted as a win for the nation in the Nations Cup. He did win 3 parallel slaloms though. He also finished in 2nd 5 times and in 3rd once. When Stenmark's stats are presented, sometimes you see his starts in parallel slaloms included in the number of starts, but only his 2nd place in 75 is counted towards his other stats. Today, parallel slaloms in the city events and the giant parallel slalom count as individual wins. So if you're going to compare races from different eras, you have some choices to make here. Here are his stats in parallel over his career. 14 starts, 3 wins, 5 silvers, 1 bronze, an 8th, an 11th, a 14th, and 2 DNFs. I don't know if it matters, but should we start saying that Stenmark won 89 races? Everything I've said so far is fact. What we've done was to go through the actual results and see how they played out because of the rules that didn't apply and what would have happened under today's rules. I'm now going to add one more fact and then I'm going to allow myself some room to speculate. Fact: Stenmark was banned from competing in the 1984 Olympics in Sarajevo. In Stenmark's day, the ideal for athletes was a bit different. At least in Europe, it was viewed as a bit dirty to make money off of sports. Athletes should be amateurs. But in the early 1980s, FIS decided to create a new type of license, which meant that an athlete could receive sponsorship money directly from sponsors instead of only via the Ski Federation. Stenmark opted for the new license, and so did Hanni Wenzel of Liechtenstein, also a double gold medalist from the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. However, the International Olympic Committee held on to the amateur deal a bit longer than FIS did. That meant that Stenmark and Wenzel were both banned from the 1984 Olympics. The IOC changed the rule after the Sarajevo Olympics, and Stenmark was allowed to race in the 1988 Olympics in Calgary. And that means that we have arrived to the first speculation in this video series. What would Stenmark have done at the Sarajevo Olympics? We will never know, that's for sure, but we can have a look at the season he was having on the World Cup, as well as to check out his preceding championship credentials. In the 1984 season leading into the Olympics, here's what Stenmark did in the slalom. DNF, win, win, DNF, win, 5th, 2nd. And here's what he did in the GS. 7th, win, win, win. That's 11 races in slalom and GS. Stenmark had 6 wins, so more than half. He also had 1 silver, 7 podiums in 11 races. Now, up until 1984, Stenmark had been to 2 Olympic Games and 2 World Championships. Here are his results. 76, slalom DNF, GS bronze. 78, slalom gold, GS gold. 1980, slalom gold, GS gold. 1982, slalom gold, GS silver. With that, I think it's fair to say that Stenmark was in good form, particularly in GS, with 3 straight wins. It's also fair to say that Stenmark was a good championship racer and that he could perform on the biggest stage. I mean, he had a double gold from the 78 World Champs and a double gold from the 1980 Olympics. I'm gonna say it was about a 50% likelihood that he would have come away with a gold and another medal. Let's say a gold and a bronze. That alone would have been 18 points in the super ranking, by the way. Granted, this is pure speculation, but well within reason. So, Stenmark should rightfully have won 6 overall cups, just based on the results that he actually produced on the hill and without any speculation or hypotheticals. The reason he didn't was that the rules applicable were designed to make sure he didn't win. Stenmark skied 14 parallel slaloms in his career, but 13 of those starts don't count towards his individual results. He won 3 parallel slaloms and had 5 silvers and a bronze. Should those actually count as individual results for Stenmark? In a comparison with today's athletes, I think it's only fair to either include them or exclude them for everyone. The 1984 Olympics loom pretty large here because we tend to value championship golds and other medals very highly. Non-skiers might not care about the World Cup, but everyone loves an Olympic champion. Would he have taken a 3rd Olympic gold in '84? Or even a 4th? We'll never know. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to watch the 3rd episode in the Stenmark trilogy, Stenmark vs. Hirscher, when it comes out. Please like and subscribe. Shout out to Matteo Pacor at the Alpine Ski Database for his hard work in keeping track of and making available all the stats from the World Cup, World Championships and the Olympic Games at www.ski-db.com. Incredible work, and thank you very much.